Hey, welcome. We take another look into the life and message of Elisabeth Elliot today. She called us to live to a higher standard and not be satisfied with second best. As our series continues in the coming weeks, we'll hear from family, friends, and others who were influenced by the life and message of Elisabeth Elliot. Hey, thanks for joining us again today, or for the first time. A special welcome to you. Today we go to part 2 and 3 of a 5-part look at the holy work of mothering. These are Gateway to Joy programs, each one 12 minutes or so in length. Our first one is about emptiness and fulfillment, and a look at spiritual mothering coming up later. We'll be hearing from Elisabeth Martin. She's one of the granddaughters of Elisabeth Elliot. And she has some thoughts on Granny's high view of motherhood and the difference between Elisabeth and her daughter Valerie when it came to motherhood. And we'll hear from a friend of Elisabeth who considered her to be patient and the mother of her heart. Right now, let's get to part 2 of the holy work of mothering as we think about the nurturing of little ones, about how we can represent what God is like through our choices that we make, and how mothers can represent what God is like as they raise their little ones. Think about emptiness and fulfillment. In what way are they both needed in the life of a mother? Turn in your Bible to Philippians chapter 2 as you think about exhausting pleasures and the fear of being alone with God or alone with ourselves.
Yesterday, we pondered the amazing story in the first chapter of Luke of that little peasant girl in Nazareth who received a dazzling visitor, an angel from God, who told her that she was to become the mother of the Son of God. A staggering piece of news. Isn't it amazing that so little is recorded about Mary? But we do know what her response was to the angel's message. Behold, the handmaiden of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word. Or another translation says, here I am, Lord, let it happen as you say. Mary became the bearer of the Word with a capital W. The Word was made flesh in the body of Mary. What calling could be higher than to receive a child or another person from God in the name of God and nurture that one for Him? You and I are not given the literal privilege that Mary had to be the bearer of the Son of God in that physical sense. But let's not forget that we are given the privilege of bearing Christ within ourselves. Christ lives in me. That's what Paul said. And to everyone who has committed himself or herself to God, willingly receiving Christ, that person is to bear Christ to the world. In other words, to be an instrument of God, to represent what God is like in our behavior, in our love, in our caring. Jesus said, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. This is what Mary did. She took the yoke, which was going to mean sacrifice and pain, as does giving birth to any child, whether spiritual or physical. And this is the yoke that the Lord is asking us to take. Today I want to talk about emptiness and fulfillment. Both of these things are necessary to the holy work of mothering. Philippians 2 is an amazing description of the way in which Jesus Christ emptied himself when he came into the world. Let me read to you from Philippians 2. Your attitude should be the same as that of Jesus Christ, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, emptied himself, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. Emptiness. And out of that emptiness came the highest, most glorious fulfillment. Out of our emptiness, God can give us fulfillment beyond anything we ever imagined. There have been a number of ways, as I look back over my life, in which God has forcibly emptied me, taking away people I loved, allowing work that I had done to be destroyed, a stripping process necessary that we should be emptied in order that we may be filled with Christ himself. Jesus Christ emptied himself. He became obedient to death. And I would like to ask, who is listening today who feels empty, helpless, useless, a failure as a mother? Oh, I think there probably be quite a few of you out there that are saying, "Oh, Elisabeth, I'm just a total failure as a mother. I feel so useless. I feel so incapable of doing this holy job that you talk about." And how about you single women? You married women whose wombs have been empty always. There's a message here for every single one of us. Do you live in a void, meaningless, unhappy condition? Let me ask, do you indulge in exhausting pleasures? Do you allow space, silence, time for prayer in your life? Are you afraid to be alone with God or alone with your heart? Is your house full of clutter? Is your life cluttered? I know some earnest, serious women who have a conscious purpose in life, and they actually destroy it by being too set on that particular purpose that they have drawn up, their own goals, their own plans, their own enthusiasms, forgetting to leave room to receive the Lord, to listen to the still, small voice. When I talked to my daughter Valerie not long ago, she told me that she and Theo, who's 5 years old, were cleaning drawers. How many useless things they discovered. How many things that even the little 5-year-old boy was willing to get rid of, either throw away because they weren't worth anything, or give them to some child who didn't have nearly as many things as he had. Mary had a simple life. God wants us to learn, the older we grow, to be simpler. And by his grace, I do think he is working that in me. It's refreshing to simplify your life. Mothering means sacrifice. It means letting go of a lot of things that you used to do. It means offering up your life to Jesus Christ daily. Perhaps you've made a one-time commitment to Jesus Christ for life. You asked him to come into your heart, to make a Christian out of you, and you want to live that way. But I think it's a good thing to ratify that one-time commitment daily by simply putting ourselves at God's disposal, as Mary did. I often just pause and lift up my hands to the Lord and say, "Behold the handmaiden of the Lord. Let it happen as you say. Be it unto me according to your word." Letting go, offering up, surrendering, emptying. And in Jesus' life and Mary's life, there was one holy purpose. That was the will of God. It's very hard to imagine that Mary's life was hampered by trifling, unnecessary things. But perhaps there was something. You and I know how hard it is to avoid the slavery of things in the USA. Gotta have it all. Are you learning to empty yourself as Christ did? That emptiness requires a deliberate discarding, not only of things, but of, as Amy Carmichael wrote, all that dims thy Calvary. She prayed this prayer from subtle love of softening things, from easy choices, weakenings. Not thus our spirits fortified, not this way went the crucified. From all that dims thy Calvary, O Lamb of God, deliver me. The holy work of mothering involves taking care of a sick child once in a while, doesn't it? When your child is sick, your plans are upset. How do you respond? Are you willing to empty out those precious plans? Do you receive this happening of your child's illness as from God? Do you visualize yourself with all sorts of extras and escapes and interests other than love in your life? A mother is a chalice, a cup, emptied of self and filled with Christ. We came home from a trip one day and discovered that a house finch had built a little nest on a windowsill. It was fascinating to watch how that house finch sacrificed everything for those babies that were about to come. That was her life. For 3 weeks, she had nothing else to do but sit on that nest. And for 3 more weeks, she had nothing else to do but feed and care for those babies. Was her time wasted? Do you chop up your life to the spiritual and the secular? One half of it is spiritual, one half of it is secular, or maybe 90% of it is secular and 10% spiritual. Now I know that earning a living, cleaning, cooking, caring for children, mending, these often seem like wasted time. But let's remember, it is through the ordinary human life, every hour, that union with God comes about. Not in extraordinary things, but in the ordinary, humdrum, faithful carrying out of the duties that God has given you to do. Mothering is holy work. Human nature was the material that God used to fulfill his will in Mary. Are you willing to be a mother, a chalice, to be empty, that he might fill you?
The Holy Work of Mothering, Part 2. That was emptiness and fulfillment. Elisabeth had several grandchildren. One of them is also named Elisabeth Martin. Well, Elisabeth, your grandmother said that there is no nobler career than that of motherhood at its best. Why do you think she had such a high view of motherhood?
Well, she starts with Mary in each of these episodes, doesn't she? Mary bore Jesus, and so those who have children, whether biological, adopted, fostered, or spiritual, are all called to be bearers of Jesus just as Mary was, with the suffering that comes along with that, the sacrifice, and of course the joy. Mary was available, willing, and obedient. We are to follow her example. The high view of motherhood, I think for my grandmother, she saw it as she only got to be mom to one. And she had such high respect for women who had a lot more on their plate in the way of children. She uses examples of people who have children with special needs. And although we don't maybe talk about them as handicapped anymore, that's the word she uses, I appreciate that she had wonderful respect for people who had been called into a particular level of sacrifice. And that was no less important or no more important than another woman or another mother would have to take on.
Now, your mother, as an only child, may have had some differences with your grandmother when it came to approaching motherhood. For instance, your mother had several children.
Several. Well, there were 8 of us. So yes, 8 children. The motherhood approach is going to be quite different. They didn't differ in their expectations that the child is to obey the mom. The child needs to be able to trust their parents, and therefore discipline, routine, all in the context of poured out love is part of that trusting relationship. So in that way, they didn't differ at all. But they did differ in their approach because my granny only had my mom, who, from what I know, was a very compliant child. She never challenged her mother, or very rarely did. We don't have many episodes that are written about my grandmother finding my mom a challenge, except for needing her to focus. But I don't think that's the same thing. I think my mom, having 8 children who were all very strong-willed, who all have been very opinionated, very noisy, loud, I think there are only a few in our 8 that are compliant or were compliant as little people. So my mom's approach had to be, I think, a lot more on her knees. I think my mom had to pray ever more fervently for God to work on our hearts because she felt a lot of the time like this was too big a job. It was way too hard.
Elisabeth Martin, thank you. Well, later we'll be hearing about somebody who considered Elisabeth to be the mother of her heart. Right now it's part 3 of spiritual mothering. Now as we think of motherhood, maybe those who have never given birth think, well, that doesn't apply to me. But how does this idea of the holy work of mothering also apply to singles, or for wives who have never had a child of their own? Think about the need for younger women and older women to have an influence on each other, and about the tasks of the day, some odious, some seemingly too big, and some we're just tired of.
We've been thinking about that amazing greeting that a little peasant girl in a village called Nazareth received one day when she was, we assume, going about her usual housework, perhaps kneading bread, perhaps sweeping the floor, sewing. We don't know what she was doing. But suddenly there was a visitor that she was not expecting, and the angel greeted her with these words, "Hail, Mary, full of grace. The Lord is with you." Have you stopped to think about the fact that the Lord is with you? He made you a mother. And I speak also to singles. Have you thought about spiritual mothering? Some of the most significant people in my life, those who have been like icons of spirituality and holiness, have been single women. Women who never were married, women who never bore a child. As I speak on the subject of the holy work of mothering, think about spiritual mothering. Titus 2:3-5 lays a very severe responsibility on all of us that older women are to teach the younger women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be pure, to be chaste, not wine drinkers, not busybodies. You know, to me it's a great sorrow that there seem to be very few older women who are willing to make themselves available to be mothers to those younger women. So many of them make the excuse, well, I raised my family, I've done my job, now it's my turn to do something for myself. You mothers who have young children, is it your desire to be the best mother, not only for your child, but also for God? I'm sure that it is. Mothering is a divine gift, not a problem, not an interruption, not a mistake. God is the Lord of life and death. How is this divine gift to be received? As Mary received it. Behold the handmaiden of the Lord. Be it unto me according to your word. Another way to translate it would be, let it happen. I belong to the Lord body and soul. Let it happen as you say. Or, here I am the Lord's servant. As you have spoken, so be it. I would suggest that you try that yourself when you find yourself faced with a task which perhaps is an odious one that you don't really enjoy, or a task which you feel is too big for you, or a task which you're terribly tired of because you've done it so many times for so many years. Try putting yourself in God's presence and quietly saying, behold the handmaiden of the Lord. Let it happen as you say. I belong to the Lord, body and soul. I do pray that you women who are listening will respond to the Lord's message as Mary did. Do you truly believe that God knows what He's doing? That He ordained you to be born? That He gave you that child and presided over every generation which preceded you and your child? It fascinates me to go back through genealogy of our families, my mother's family and my father's family, and realize that the genes that were in those ancestors whom I never knew have in some way affected my life. God has ordained you to be born at exactly the date on which you were born, in exactly the place and for exactly the purpose. And He knows exactly what He's doing. And every one of us has been placed in the keeping of other human hands, haven't we? Now, as mothers, He places a child in our hands. And He gives us grandchildren, too. It so happens that while I'm recording this, I'm sitting in my study at home, and I've got 3 grandchildren in the house. Elisabeth, 18, Colleen, 11, and Theo, who's 5. And they have been told that they must be very quiet in order not to make any background noise. And they are being so quiet that I almost forget that they're here. But what a joy it has been for these grandparents to have our grandchildren come. It is a great mistake to suppose that those who have inherited the material for their life from suffering generations and who have poor health and a timid approach to life, or some vice or weakness, have not been designed and planned by God as much as others, who seem luckier in the world's eyes. That which seems to be a crumbling point, a lack, a thorn in the flesh, is destined for God's glory as surely as the rotting bones of Lazarus, as surely as the radiance of Mary of Nazareth. Have you taken a timid approach to life? Do you have some vice or weakness? Do you suppose that God made a mistake when He designed and planned you? Everybody else seems luckier than you are. Let me remind you, if you have received Christ, He lives in you in a very deep and true spiritual sense. I am crucified with Christ, Paul said. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ lives in me. Christ lives in you. You are His chosen vessel, precisely designed for His use in the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the laundry. Is it holy work to wash dishes? Yes, it is. Is it holy work to clean the bathtub? It is indeed. Is it holy work to wash the clothes and iron them? It is when you offer it up to God. It becomes transformed. People sometimes ask me if I find fulfillment in writing. Well, for me, writing is the hardest job I do, outside of praying. But I would certainly say that I like housework, and God has given me both to do. Housework is easier for me than writing, but I am to lift up to God all the work that I do. God is not more impressed with my writing a book or preparing a radio message than He is with my keeping a clean house. If only I could help you to see that, to transfigure that humdrum stuff into a lovely offering up with thanksgiving to the God who put you where you are. You know the story of Brother Lawrence, a young man centuries ago who wanted to become a saint, and so he decided that the best thing to do would be to join a monastery. And there he would be able to become a saint. He was dismayed when he learned what his assignment was to be. He was put in the kitchen to scrub pots. Imagine, scrubbing pots. And yet it was there that he tells us that he learned to practice the presence of God. I think of my friend Debbie Ritu. She and her husband Bill adopted 19 children. They had 4 children of their own. 2 of those 4 died. So they have 21 children And 10 of those children are seriously handicapped. Why would they take on 10 seriously handicapped children plus 9 other children, perfectly normal children? Well, inasmuch as you've done it for one of the least of these, my brothers, you have done it for me, Jesus said. And then there's my friend Juana Michaels. You've perhaps heard her on this program, her amazing testimony. Well, when she recorded those programs, her baby had not been born. When the baby was born, it was discovered immediately that she had hair lip and cleft palate. Shortly thereafter, they discovered that the baby had no eyeballs. Did God make a mistake? That child is destined for God's glory, as is every other handicapped person. God doesn't make any junk. I think it was Ethel Waters that said, God don't make no junk. Are you a mother of a child like that? This is your holy work that God has assigned. It is your portion. Psalm 16:5 says, Lord, you have assigned me my portion and my cup, and have made my lot secure. God has measured out that portion precisely to the measure that you can bear. When you think that you can't bear any more, just look up and say, Father, help me. Help me to bear the yoke with you. Take the yoke of Jesus Christ, and he bears it with you. He always carries the heavier end of the cross, you know. And never for one moment does he leave you or forget you or forsake you, no matter how it feels or seems. Remember that you can offer up every task that God gives you to do. You can offer up your fears, your weaknesses, your sins, and God knows how to handle every single one of them. Mothering is holy work.
The Holy Work of Mothering, Part 3 of a 5-part series, so we'll conclude it next time with parts 4 and 5. This was Spiritual Mothering. At the July 26th, 2015 Wheaton Memorial Service for Elisabeth, one of the speakers was named Donna Otto, a friend of Elisabeth, who said that her friend was patient and actually the mother of her heart.
I am Donna Otto, and I loved Elisabeth very much. She was the mother of my heart. She pointed me to him always, and always away from her. When I met her, I was so young, and all I wanted was someone to tell me how to do it. And I would go at the same question with her a dozen different ways. Well, just tell me what your morning looks like in prayer. What do you do first? Well, what do you do in the middle? Well, what do you do at the end? And do you do it all 7 days? And she would raise her hands. She once said to me, murderous, murderous. And I said, pardon me? And she said, it's murderous. You are so slow to get these simple concepts. And of course, she was absolutely right. I was. But one of the great gifts that this mother of my heart gave me was her enduring patience with me. My life was to be changed at her hand. She always pointed me to him. She never answered those questions. She never answered them. And it wasn't until I was in my early 60s that a young daughter of my heart asked me much the same variety of questions, and a big light bulb went on. Oh, that's what she was doing.
A friend of Elisabeth, Donna Otto. Well, as you think about the will of God and how it applies to you when it comes to motherhood, Elisabeth Elliot had a word about the will of God. She said, the will of God is not something you add to your life. It's a course you choose. You either line yourself up with the Son of God, or you capitulate to the principle which governs the rest of the world. Well, as our time comes to a close today, thanks for letting us come along with you wherever you've been today. It's good to spend some time with you. And on behalf of the Elisabeth Elliot Foundation, in cooperation with the Bible Broadcasting Network, let me invite you to check out all the resources at elisabethelliot.org. That's elisabethelliot.org for more talks, devotionals, videos, and other Gateway to Joy programs. Until next time, may God remind you each day you are loved with an everlasting love, and underneath are the everlasting arms